Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 61. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, as the Pittsburgh Steelers at 9-3 get ready to hopefully officially eliminate the Cleveland Browns from playoff contention and get to that double-digit victory of number 10 this Sunday in a rematch from just 2 weeks ago. So a lot to talk about, much of it the same in that respect, but a lot of still new things to talk about, injuries and coordinator talk. And man, how about that game last night, Dave? What we quickly, because it'll be a different show, no beat writer on today because they just play the Browns. There's nothing really new to talk about there. What were your thoughts on Dan Campbell going for it on fourth down when he could have kicked a field goal with 30 seconds left?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, we know his happy Friday, by the way, to everybody. First of all, we know his history and how aggressive he's been and willing to go in fourth down situations like that. And heck, he had a couple previously in the game and all. I got to be honest, when he rolled out that the offense back out there initially, I thought, yeah, they're just going to, because of his history of going for it on fourth down and all, how smart would it be to roll the offense out there and just try to get them to jump off sides? And then if they don't, just go ahead, because I think he had one timeout to use at the time, and then run the play clock down, call the timeout, then send your kicker out there on fourth down. So I thought initially, because of what he had in the bank already, and not only in the bank historically, but in the game, that he was just going to roll the offense out there, try to get him to go, jump off sides, move it a little bit closer, and then if he can't do that, call timeout and kick the field goal. When they actually did run the play, was I shocked overall? No, but I mean, you had Jared Goff stumbling coming out of center. I mean, you had almost what could have been a disaster turn into an epic, good for him, sealed the game type of call there. Would I have had the stones in that situation to go for it? No.
Same, 100%.
No. And I thought immediately, too, would Mike Tomlin have gone for it in that situation? And I came to the conclusion, no. No, I think Mike Tomlin would have rolled the offense out there. Because once again, I think having the one time out here that Detroit had was kind of key in this. I thought to myself, okay, if the Steelers were in the same situation, I could see them rolling the offense out there, try to get the defense to jump, use up, whatever time you could that way. And if not, take the timeout, send Boswell out there to kick, to kick the eventual game winner there. I would have been absolutely shocked, though, had Mike Tomlin been in that situation, especially where the ball was in the field, especially considering the kicker that he has, considering in the past, Mike Tomlin says, well, if we miss a field goal, whatnot, I have complete trust in my defense, yada, yada. So, I mean, that's something that I think that's kind of exclusive to Dan Campbell, is just the aggressiveness. He did not want to give the ball back to the Packers with any time left in the clock. And I think even the players in him specifically after the game said, look, we talked about this week, and Dan Campbell said we're going to be as aggressive as we can, especially on fourth down situations. And I think he was true to his word here, and we've seen Dan Campbell go for it for fourth down and fake punts and all like that before. So I wouldn't have done that. I would have sent a kicker out there and and then take my chances from there. But the you can't argue with where the Lions are at right now.
Talk about walking the walk if you're Dan Campbell to really live that aggressive mentality. It's preached by every coach. No coach says, hey guys, we're going to be super conservative here in all these situations. Every coach says we're going to be aggressive and push to win, but he's a guy that really embodies it to its fullest extent. You're right, Mike Tomlin, no chance he goes for it. I don't think there's another head coach in football that would have gone for it. Even Harbaugh and more aggressive coaches, Sirianni, I don't think there's a chance where they even consider that. I had the game on kind of in the background while I was working on my Browns scouting report up on the site today with myself and Jonathan Heitretter and Josh Carney. And so I'm actually not 100% sure the sequence, but didn't the Lions call a timeout before running that play on fourth down? I think there was a timeout called. I think it was by Detroit.
Oh boy, I was watching it. I don't know if I was watching it that closely that way.
But that was my thought. When I saw the offense come back out, I thought they have to run a play because if they just call timeout, you can't call consecutive timeouts. And they're not going to take a delay game penalty and back themselves up 5 yards. So I know that on the broadcast, and listen, Al Michaels and Herb Street talk about, are they going to run a play here? They're going to do hard count. And I was like, I think they have to run a play because I think they just called timeout. I'm not sure. I think that's the sequence of which happened. So I'm kind of trying to process all that. And then like you, I'm watching Goff stumble away from center going, oh my God, they're not going to get this off. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to be the talk on all sports radio and TV and Twitter and everything for the next 24 hours about the decision to go for it on fourth down. So that was kind of me trying to process all that. And by the time I kind of did, they converted and that was that. But yeah, what a wild moment.
Yeah, they called timeout after the 3rd and 1 run by Montgomery. Was there some sort of review challenge in that play that caused the timeout? In other words, 10 seconds have to come. I don't.
It was earlier, I thought.
Yeah, I was watching it, but I wasn't watching it that intently. Same. And then the fact that you bring up the timeout now, I don't even remember the sequence because of all the energy that the fourth down play generated in that situation. Yeah, now I'm gonna have to go back and watch the end of that. Now I don't remember. I don't remember the specifics in that.
Because you can't call back-to-back timeouts, right?
Right.
Isn't that illegal? It's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, I believe. Would have bet you up 15 yards. Obviously, they weren't going to do that. I know we're totally just.
I see what you're getting at there. Because if they would have called timeout, because they had called timeout, had they run the offense out there again, they wouldn't and run the play clock down. Yeah. They wouldn't have been able to call back-to-back timeout, right. And then they would have been backed up, delay game. Okay, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my interpretation of like, oh my God, they are going for it. Like I'm watching that as they're lining up thinking, okay, they have to go for it here because I don't think they have another choice. And so it seemed like it was serious from the get-go. Why do you think, and again, I know we're out of left field, we're going to talk injuries, but listen, the team's healthy. We're in a good place right now. So there isn't a whole lot to discuss there. Why do you think Mike Tomlin has gotten seemingly in some respects, he's been aggressive, but he seems a little less aggressive than maybe he once was. Remember that year? It was all about 2-point conversions. They went for it for 2 points as much as any team in football. Obviously, the talent on offense has changed. That may be the obvious answer to that. It felt like he's had some fourth down attempts in recent weeks against Washington and Baltimore to clearly, mixed success, Cleveland game as well. But it feels like he's been a little less aggressive in recent years. Is that just because of the offense? Is there more?
It might be the confidence in the offense that he has now, especially at this point of year. You got a veteran quarterback. You probably feel at any given point now that that the game maybe doesn't hang on a specific one drive type situation. So that might play a part in it. Obviously, you got to. And he's had a fantastic kicker in Chris Boswell. So, and I think he really trusts his defense, for the most part overall. So I think you add all that together and the fact that he probably does feel if they get in it, if he just every drive that they get into, or a drive that gets into the opposition territory, isn't the end of the game. If one drive gets down in there and they get into a fourth and short situation there, he's not fearful that they won't be back in that same type of situation, I guess.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, big picture. less so this year because the offense is better, but in past years, last year, 2 years ago, the offense not as good, a lot of confidence in the defense, and so it lends itself to being less aggressive in some of those fourth down situations. But we'll see what happens this weekend at the Acrisure Stadium. I bet you Cleveland will be aggressive in this one as they were in the Week 12 game. They were, was it 4 for 4 on fourth down? In Week
Yeah,
12?
and then that's what, when we start getting into this, I did roll back and wanted to, after it's been several days, to roll back through not only the tape of that game against the Browns, but the stat book as well too, and some of the key things that we talked about in there. Real quick, coming out, we talked about Hard Knocks the other day and all like that, and since then there's been a couple of conversations about will Hard Knocks end up maybe potentially helping Mike Tomlin win Coach of the Year this year?
Yeah, I think it will. I think, I know everyone who, follows the National Football League, all the outsiders had a general sense of the type of coach that Mike Tomlin is. He's consistent. He's a motivator. He connects with players, but it's different when you really get to see that consistently week in, week out, which Hard Knocks will do not just this past Tuesday, but it'll probably be highlighted to some degree every single week. So when that's more front and center, when that really hits home, obviously Tomlin was the talk of Hard Knocks coming off the premiere episode. That may not be the case every single week, but you'll get that consistent exposure to his style. And you combine that with somebody obviously on track to deserve the award from a resume standpoint based on where Pittsburgh was expected to be, where they're at. If that continues, if they can beat the Chiefs, if they could beat Baltimore again, beat the Eagles, if they take two of those three games and you end up with a 12-13 win season, I think Hard Knocks can be a potential kind of tiebreaker that pushes you over the top. Now, is he guaranteed to win it again? Other good candidates. Dan Campbell himself is a fantastic candidate for the award. And I think Dan Quinn at Washington is still worthy, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it certainly doesn't hurt Mike Tomlin's chances to have this extra exposure on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, and I think the notion there is that all the voters for that, are tuned in because it is Hard Knocks. Some of those guys obviously, have been around the league long and covering the league long enough that they know Mike Tomlin, at his core, but to have it hyper focused and for him to kind of come out of this thing as a star of this particular Hard Knocks AFC North series, yeah, I think it can help us chances. But I will roll back to what I've said, and I think you still believe this as well too. You got to win the AFC North, right? I mean, if this team just gets into playoffs and doesn't win the AFC North, could and should Mike Tomlin win Coach of the Year? I say no.
Yeah, at that point, I doubt it because it means you've lost, some of these games down the stretch here. It probably means you lost to Baltimore in the rematch and dropped. It probably means you didn't beat any of the heavyweights you have on your schedule in Philadelphia and Kansas City and Baltimore. If you end up kind of squandering this 2-game lead with, 6 games to go. But to Baltimore. So yeah, I think it's going to require winning the division, but Pittsburgh, of course, has a good chance to do so.
Right. Okay. Where are we going to from here?
Yeah, I'll just reset things.
Hit on Larry Ogunjobi. I want to make sure we get the Larry Ogunjobi stuff out there because it's such such a good cause and what he's doing, and that was announced yesterday.
We've known for, I think it was 7 straight years that Cam Hayward was always the Pittsburgh Steelers nominee, and rightfully so, for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Each team gets to have a nominee and submit for final voting come NFL honors. But because Hayward, it was great to see, obviously last year won the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the 2023-2024 season. He's no longer eligible to win it again. There were no repeat winners for the award. And so Pittsburgh had to nominate a new name, and it was Larry Ogunjobi, who's done great work. And it's been highlighted on the team site in terms of community service and soup kitchens. And I think some of the stuff for kids in terms of school supplies and a lot of cool things there. And so congratulations to Larry Ogunjobi. He had a really good speech, just kind of talking about the meaning of impact and what his platform is able to do. And he's a guy that doesn't necessarily talk a whole lot about some of the causes that he gives to and some of the work that he does. It's a little more under the radar. And so I think it's really cool for the team to get to highlight that and wish him the best of luck to win the award and follow Hayward's footsteps.
I was thinking about what you had just said yesterday after it was announced. The fact that how many interviews have we seen with Larry Ogunjobi with the media? I was thinking back. That's the guy that you just don't hear from on and you don't, not only do you not see the video, the tweet videos or the videos on Steelers.com or anything. You barely get to read any quotes or anything behind the scenes. So
yeah, or him on social media tweeting or anything.
Right. I mean, he goes about his business and good for him. He's not calling it. I mean, he lets his actions speak and I think obviously great causes. Now, look, do I think he's got a snowflake's chance in hell at winning this time, especially on the heels of Cam Hayward winning it last year? No, but it is good to see that around the league these 32 representatives get called out for the work and highlighted and all like that. So I would have never thought that he would have probably been the guy that would have been chosen this year. So I was a little bit shocked that he was the choice, and I found it interesting to reading into kind of the work that he's doing. So because there's probably not going to be a lot of talk about it moving forward, I wanted to make sure we highlighted that today.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I learned a lot because I didn't realize he was involved in all those programs and did all those things. So anytime you can spotlight what the good a player does, and unfortunately, in this news cycle, we live in the negative headlines most often get the biggest spotlight and attention. And 98% of the players on a roster are doing good and doing the right things.
Yeah.
And so it's great to be able to talk about some of those great things. And yeah, I thought maybe would have gone to Alex Highsmith, but those guys obviously know best. And any of those players, I'm sure, were deserving to be the nominee, but really cool for Ogunjobi.
Sure.
All right, Dave, let's talk about this Pittsburgh Steelers injury situation. And the good news is there really is no news when it comes to the health of this team. Pittsburgh also, by the way, making some roster moves. They waived running back Jonathan Ward earlier this week. That cleared a roster spot for cornerback Corey Trice Jr. to officially be activated off of injured reserve to the 53-man roster. Yesterday, that was the 21st and final day for him to be activated as that window was about to close up. And so they had to make that move yesterday, and they did. So he will be able to play and eligible to play in the Browns game on Sunday. He's been a full participant in practice throughout the week, and joining him is virtually everybody else. Calvin Austin with a concussion, he's a full participant. I don't think he's been officially cleared and exited protocol yet, concussion protocol, but that should happen here, barring any sort of setback. Alex Highsmith was a full participant in Thursday's practice, and so he should play on Sunday. Good news there. The only one who did not practice on Thursday in full was Cam Hayward, and that's just due to his general rest schedule. He often does not practice on Wednesday and Thursday and then goes full on Friday. So really there is no injury note to talk about this weekend, Dave, which is fantastic for week 14 coming into your fourth straight AFC North game.
Yeah, I think, and now at this point, we just keep our fingers crossed that Alex Highsmith has another clean day. Calvin Austin has another clean day on Friday, and both those guys stay on track to play. So the final injury report be out later today. You would the way it looked on Thursday, that it doesn't feel like anybody's going to have well, I suppose you could get into a situation because of Montravius Adams not being activated yet. There's a chance that he could be ruled out, right?
That's true. Yeah, that is. He's also practiced in full, but he's still on IR. Will have to be activated by Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. There is no guarantee of that, despite his full practice. His window does not close this week, and so that's really the one and only situation to watch.
All right. I don't know which way that's going to go. If I had to guess right now, they might give Montravius another week. It seems like they, how many guys in the first week? Well, this would be actually his second week, right?
Correct.
Anyway, I mean, my guess is that he'll ultimately not be activated on Saturday, but obviously Saturday would be the key day to do it. Here's the thing. Okay, let's say Montravius is not activated on Saturday. Obviously, won't be on the official 53 at that point. Your inactives would be Kyle Allen, third quarterback. Max Sharping would be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Scotty Miller would be a third one. And then, assuming Alex Highsmith's back, I mean, you got a couple of choices there to make with is Dean Lowry down this week? Does Corey Trice not get a helmet after all of this? It's really hard to come up because you no longer have a Jonathan Ward on the 53 to make inactive, right?
You need two more, right?
You need at least two more, assuming there's no elevations,
Right.
which feels like there won't be any elevations. And obviously, if you activate Montravius Adams to the 53, you're going to need to cut somebody, to make room for him here. So, it rolls back to kind of what I asked. I kind of wonder if Preston Smith might not get a helmet this week.
Yeah, it's a fair thought. With Highsmith coming back, how many snaps will Preston Smith get? And he won't help out on special teams. So I hear you on that. I'd have to think about the list of names, and you'll have the inactive list and your predictions for the weekend. So I'm very curious on that. But even, okay, let's just say hypothetically Preston Smith is one. Well, who's the other? You got one more. You got to make it.
Right.
It might be Trice because I don't see a dime roll for him. I don't see an immediate core special teams role for him. They activated him because they had to. The window was closing. I think it's kind of why they waited, because they didn't have an immediate need to activate Trice earlier than this. So it may be Trice.
Yeah, because I mean, you got it.
Because CJ Henderson was inactive as that extra corner whenever he was on the roster before going to IR. I could see Trice doing the same.
I mean, you don't have another extra because you got to dress at least eight offensive linemen to take advantage of the roster rules. You're probably going to dress all your tight ends again. I mean, I suppose you could decide to not dress, but I mean, you got Calvin Austin banged up. You want to make sure you dress at least 5 wide receivers, right?
They've gone 4 in the past because of Patterson, his versatility. Could you see a Mike Williams not getting a hat here?
That's kind of where I'm leaning. But I mean, with Calvin Austin, let's see.
Well, if he's cleared protocol, he's cleared protocol. It's not an injury in that sense. Or could James Pierre be down? I know he's a starting gunner, but does Trice get the starting gunner hat? And they say, well, Trice has more versatility, but we like him as a backup outside corner more. I'm just spitballing ideas. I don't know which way it's going to go, but that's another, I think, plausible thought.
I mean, at least one defensive back's probably going to be inactive for this game, right?
Sure. I don't think they can dress them all. And there was not a big need to. It's the Browns. They're a more heavier, multiple tight end type team. So I think Dean Lowry's going to be active because you want as many D linemen. Of course, he's your backup nose tackle too. So you really don't want to not have anybody to be a potential backup to Ben.
All right, so I'd just be prepared if you're listening to this, because everybody's excited to have Corey Trice back on the 53. Right now, he could very well be inactive, and so could, who was the other one that I laid out there? Preston Smith. So, yeah, you got there's going to be some interesting decisions made. In other words, and two, I mean, we've had the same inactive list the last 2 weeks in a row, I think. So it obviously Jonathan Ward's not on the roster right now, and you expect an Alex Highsmith back. So there's no way it's going to be a duplicate of the last 2 weeks. So just be prepared for Preston Smith, and maybe, who knows, man? I kind of doubt Mike Williams will be on there, but I don't think you can completely rule it out. But this is just something that's been rolling around my head the last couple of days, and I, once again, if you did activate Montravius Adams, somebody's got to come off the roster, So that's, it may, and you still have a couple of days left in his 21-day window where you don't necessarily have to activate him for this game.
Right. I'm with you. I don't think Adams will get activated this weekend, maybe next weekend. I don't think it's going to happen for this Cleveland Browns game. I'll leave it to you, though, to make that prediction post. So you make those tough decisions, and I'm interested to see what your final conclusions are. On the Browns side of health, they're in a pretty good place overall, but there are some more injuries. Wide receiver Cedric Tillman, I believe, missed last week's in concussion protocol. Another receiver, Jamari Thrash, with a shoulder. Maurice Hurst did not practice with an ankle. Limited for the team on Thursday. Cornerback Greg Newsome II. cornerback Miles Harden, I believe, also missed that Week 12 game against Pittsburgh, and safety Juan Thornhill. It looks like Thornhill's going to play. We'll see on Newsome, Tillman, Hurst, those guys, but no major injury situation, but a couple more things to note for on the Browns end.
Yeah, and I noticed Miles Garrett grabbed for his hamstring the other night, but he ended up coming back in the game, and I don't think he's really, at risk of missing any time this past week. Now, they did have a estimated injury report on Wednesday, and then a regular injury report on Thursday, and they'll have a regular one today to close out the week. But I think it's important to remember that they are coming off of a short week this time, and we'll wait and see what the Friday injury report says for them as well.
Right, but for Pittsburgh, it should be a pretty clean sheet. Don't expect much intrigue on this last injury report, right, which is great, again, for being so late in the season. And it's just such an important point that so often is taken for granted and usually flies under the radar. But the teams that usually finish each season the best is the healthiest team. And Pittsburgh right now, knock on wood, a very healthy squad.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave. Arthur Smith, Teryl Austin, the coordinators speaking to the media on Thursday. Impressions from those two. Long answer from Arthur Smith about quarterback checks and freedom. We saw Russell Wilson make a ton of adjustments at the line of scrimmage in that game against Cincinnati. And Smith talked about the risks of it, about putting too much on a team's plate. And it's not just quarterback. You have to consider the whole team. You got, rookie center, another rookie offensive lineman, young group overall, but you build up on it and you just hope everyone's on the same page. And Pittsburgh obviously was. And so you saw Pittsburgh really win that cat and mouse game against Cincinnati. And I just thought Smith had a long and thoughtful answer about how do you best walk that line between giving guys freedom, but not trying to create additional risks of people not being on the same page and having those really negative outcomes.
I like the fact that you get long, kind of informative answers out of head coaches and coordinators or position coaches at time. Some people trying to frame this as a very Belichickian type of answer. I'm not going to go that far with it. I thought it was insightful, but in the same aspect of it, it seemed more kind of common sense more than anything, saying, look, the longer you have these guys playing together, especially you get deeper into the season, and you've obviously mixed in some young guys like Frazier and Mason McCormick within this, and then obviously you had to switch a quarterback 5-6 games into the season and finally get Wilson in there and get people on the same page. I mean, in a nutshell, it seems more kind of obvious than it is insightful. But I mean, I'm not going to gig him for giving a long, drawn out answer. That there's a lot that goes into this. How have teams tried to play you in certain situations? He talked about 2 safety rotation. There's a lot. The main takeaway here is there's a lot that goes on and I think he even said, highlighted that, the broadcasters will try to think that they let you know, but they don't know, and this goes back to kind of the things that we've said in the past too. You think you know, but you don't know. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of cat and mouse. There's a lot of chess and checkers. There's a lot of pre-snap stuff, or a lot of stuff that goes on in preparation during the week for each and every game. Even changing the code words up, as Arthur Smith says, there's a lot to this, and especially when you have the good thing in the Steelers situation, when you have a veteran quarterback with Russell. And look, what is one thing that we talked about coming out of this last game? There's just, man, it really looked like Russell Wilson had even more autonomy and used that autonomy more and made sure to use his checks and things of that nature. But there's probably a lot of checks that went on that we don't even know about. And I think that's kind of he talks about, all the players having to be on the same page of knowing what they see, and there's sort of kind of unspoken checks, if you will. So I appreciate the answer. I wish we had the audio of that more so than I haven't seen any audio. Have you seen the audio of that particular answer?
I have not, no.
I mean, we only have the transcript of it. So in those situations, you wish that you had to get a deeper sense of the context of it, the full video answer of the reply.
The one part that really stuck out to me was the end of his answer, and you mentioned it referencing the TV copy and having to change code words because obviously teams can hear cadence. I wonder, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like there's been more of an emphasis on the broadcast TV copy since COVID, because what happened in COVID was there was no fans or very small numbers of fans, and you could really clearly hear the entire cadence and calls at the line. I know TJ Watt talked about he would watch that to really try to pick up on tells about cadence and verbiage and try to learn some of those words. You do so in game and you still do it today, a little bit harder obviously with the crowds returning, but I wonder if teams focus on and utilize a TV copy more since then, or were they using it actively before 2020? I just wonder if that change has happened or not. Because there's two things the all 22 cannot provide you: the audio and a sense of pace and tempo. Those are two things, the downsides, quote unquote, to the all 22 that the broadcast angle and tape and copy will give you. So I thought that was an interesting comment from Arthur Smith.
I think that's always been there. You remember I've
You
talked
think?
about that for years. You know, even go but remember when Fernando
Velasco. Is that Velasco?
Velasquez, yeah,
Yeah, Velasco.
you know, and gotta go, Nando. Gotta, you know, we've always been privy. Now, look, it might be different in different stadiums of how you're able to, you know, how good the boom mics or the, you know, the overhead mics picked it up. But we've had that same sort of wire system with the, you know, that thing that slides back and forth over the field and all like that for quite a while.
Sure, but
Now,
has it been utilized by coaches as much as it was? Is this being used more now to coaches' advantage, or do you think it was before COVID?
I'm willing to guess that. Look, if I'm sitting in mom's basement and paying attention to it, you know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, coaches had to have had to as well. I think.
Okay.
I don't think it's new. I think he's just saying that, you know, more emphasis on, you know, maybe as we get more nuanced as an audience, it's being picked up more. But
Mm-hmm.
I find it hard to believe that coaches are just now kind of zeroing in on that because of since COVID.
Yeah,
I
I'm
might be
sure it
wrong.
was. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it was used before. I just wonder if it's been emphasized even more because COVID really was a game changer where you could hear every word that was said
All right.
on the TV tape when you had an empty Acrisure Stadium, and that was a difference. So maybe the coaches are using it the same. Maybe some players are using it more because they realized the utility of what that offered. TJ Watt spoke to that. I do wonder how do places like Dallas, and it's embedded and burned in my memory about the Dak Prescott, or even Cooper Rush says it now. The here we go, like they say it every single time. How do they get away with that? Because it seems so rhythmic. How do teams not jump that snap every single time? Because there's never like a hard count element to that.
Yeah, that's a good point. What does flipper mean on a week to week basis out of Zach Frazier's mouth? You know, Zach will flat out tell you sometimes you know, where he's going with the number, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of those things are obvious. If it's Lucy, then it's probably sliding to the left, and Ricky. There are some things, and teams have to change it up, but you can kind of make some pretty reasonable guesses based on what you hear. But that one in Dallas in particular, it's not even like a code word. It's just saying "here we go" and the ball gets snapped. I don't know. I'm sure they have some system down, but that's the one that
Right,
sticks out to me in terms of that cadence. Because even with Cooper Rush, seems to be the same every single time.
right. All right.
Anyway,
What else from Arthur Smith? Talking
I don't
about
want
George
to.
Pickens, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the pick and stuff. We talked about it. It'll be very interesting to watch this game against Cleveland. If tempers flare, who can keep their emotions in check, all that kind of stuff. But, Smith just said the obvious that each player is wired differently. It's case by case basis, but you can't hurt the team. That's certainly one thing you can't do with penalties. Kind of compared it to an extent to A.J. Brown. He says he got popped a few times for punting the ball in the end zone in Tennessee, which Pickens did after his touchdown. I assume a fine is coming for that. I assume it'll be a very light wallet tweak for George Pickens based on all that transpired against Cincinnati. But, Smith seriously took the penalty standpoint, but also said each situation, each player is coached differently in terms of how they handle their emotions.
All right. What else did he have to say? A lot of praise for Mike Tomlin. Talked about the screen game a little bit, and talked about how using, I think a couple of times during this one about using the running backs out of the backfield, and whether it was, something matchup specific. And look, I mean, and we talked about this the other day, and immediately after the game, and then in the all 22 review as well too. I mean, the way the Bengals were playing with the loose underneath this is something that they saw and took advantage of because of more schematics. I don't think you think they went into the game thinking we're probably going to use the running backs a lot up underneath in this one, or is this something that manifested itself during the game?
Probably both. I think they expected a pretty blitz heavy game plan, and so it's going to lend itself to the ball getting out quick and screen game and finding some hots. And yeah, maybe they had an idea that teams are playing more too high against us. It's hard to say. It's probably a bit of both. That we might have an idea of how they're going to play things, but there may not have been a plan of, hey, we're going to check the ball down a bunch of times. But once you started seeing the cover two over and over and over again, then it just became, okay, hey, it's cover two. We're checking it down. We're going to take our yak and make a profit. So it's probably half and half. I thought.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was gonna switch topics, but if you wanted to continue that, go ahead.
What after a season ends, what would be the detriment to showing more behind the scene footage of like prep meetings, as long as they're not too specific or get derogatory about an individual player? We're going to tell, so and so, if you're pointing out an extreme weakness of an individual player on the opposition or something like that, in other words, would that be detrimental after a season is over from a previous season to show more of the game planning aspect of what goes on during the week?
You mean from Hard Knocks or something the team?
No, I just in general. I mean, even if it was like more Hard Knocks kind of stuff, or team related season rewind type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where would the harm be in that?
I think the Steelers, like most teams, are very protective to a point of almost paranoia about those things. About any
throw out the Steelers, just any team in general.
Well, I think it's a similar thought, and that's where I do wonder, like, how are the Giants okay with half the stuff the offseason Hard Knocks got showed? Because that was pretty transparent. But I think teams always worry about giving up an edge, and if this team learns about us, we're not learning about them, then they have the advantage. But yeah, I hear your point. I think some of that's overblown. Like I said, it's a little bit of paranoia. If it was game plan type stuff, it would depend just on what exactly it was, because if it's a system and process thing that may carry over into the next year, then that could be an issue. But listen, I would love to see it. I mean, I'm all for the behind the scenes look, and that's why I think Hard Knocks is, really cool. And I know teams may not like it, but from our outsider perspective, I think it's really a really cool lens into the NFL.
I would love to sit through a week of meetings as a fly on the wall to see, the more nuts and bolts, if you will, of what they're expecting and how they're attacking or plan to attack. That's just something that we can only guess on, and what we think they would do based on what we see in the tape and all like that. But it would be very interesting to be able to, and then they'd have to use the Men in Black kind of mind eraser on you, as you leave. But I think that would be great to be able to sit through that stuff.
Back to Arthur Smith, an interesting exchange I thought occurred. I want to get your take on it, Dave. Late in the interview, there's a question. I'll read it verbatim from the transcript. It says, quote, "When you get another head coaching opportunity, what's something that you would take that you learned from Mike?" That's the question. And then I'll read just part of the answer from Arthur Smith. He says, quote, "I've been fortunate to have a lot of great mentors. Mike Tomlin, another Hall of Fame coach that I've had the chance to work for. Joe Gibbs being another one. Good mentors. You constantly learn and evolve." Later says, quote, "It's different here. It's unique. It's a credit to a lot of the people and the way this thing has been built and the way this organization goes day by day about their daily business. It's an awesome climate, culture, whatever you want to call it. And that's from the top down." Was that answer, because it was a direct response about when you leave, what will be your takeaways from your time in Pittsburgh. Was that him just wanting to give Pittsburgh the credit for what they've done for him, or was this an acknowledgement of I'm not going to be here for super long?
No, I mean, I think I'm a guy in his situation at his age. He still thinks that he can get back to another head coaching position, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't, knock him for that. I think it's
Sure.
huh?
No, I agree, but I think you could have thought one answer to that question would have been, I'm not thinking about future head coaching opportunities. I'm just really excited about what we're building right now in Pittsburgh. He seemed to answer it in the sense of leaning into the question of when you leave and you're going to leave, what will be
Well,
your thoughts
they
about
all
leaving
leave
Pittsburgh?
sooner or later.
Sure. But if this feels like sooner than later, and we're hearing the buzz on him now. The Jets are, beat writer for the Jets connecting Smith to New York in that vacancy. Chicago, he apparently was going to be targeted pretty hard by North Carolina until he turned it down. There's a lot of smoke here.
I just think I mean, he could have very easily gone and said, look, I'm not concentrating on what's happening. I'm in the here and now and gone that route. Well, but I think I think his answer was more in line of what would you take, because it's kind of two part, right? When you get another head coaching opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
what's something that you would take away that you learned from Mike? So I kind of view it more as him answering the second part of the question than he is the first.
Sure. But he never really downplayed the first
Right.
part. And maybe I'm parsing the language too much. Whenever he spoke last week when the first rumors about North Carolina popped up and he said he would be very careful about jumping at the next head coaching opportunity, would want to make sure it's the right fit. It's different now than it was a couple of years ago when he hadn't been a head coach prior to 2021. You take any job out there because it's a head coaching job and that's the dream. They'll be more judicious in terms of selecting the next opportunity. I just maybe I'm overthinking it. I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, look, I mean, you're obviously going to hear his name bantered around, especially if the Steelers, you know, get win a playoff, go deeper in the playoffs. He's definitely going to be a guy that you hear his name bantered around as one of these several head coach openings that's going to happen here in several more weeks. So, man, it's not like he did anything really, really wrong. It's just normally, don't you see those guys? How many guys around the NFL? I mean, it would take some research. It probably happens more than you think. That 1 year go as a coordinator and then turn around and right back in as a head coach the next year.
Yeah, somebody asked me that. I would have to research it. I'm sure there's instances of it. I
Yeah,
can't
it
think of any.
happens. I'm sure it's just we're not hyper focused to it.
Yeah, we don't typically talk about head coaching hirings in Pittsburgh too often. There's only been three in the last 50 plus years. So there's not a conversation that we can really draw from our own experience on. Yeah, Smith did nothing wrong here, to be clear. I just thought it was an
Right.
interesting response to not downplay the head coaching angle, and just kind of maybe sidestep it, but also not really dismiss the idea and seem to almost embrace the spirit of the question is all.
Now, once again, we're taking at its word. That's exactly how that question was asked
Sure.
as it's written.
Sure. And sometimes it's cleaned up in the transcript to make it a little tighter. And so that's also a fair point.
So that's a bad thing about not having complete context of having the actual footage of the Q&A sessions that we obviously get with Mike Tomlin every week. I wish the team would be more apt to just putting these out on, as videos.
But the point I'm trying to make is the one and only downside to Smith having success, and if this season continues to roll along and Pittsburgh continues to win and make a playoff run, is you may only have Arthur Smith for one season.
All right, real quick. Where are the openings going to be at this year? The Jets, obviously, right?
There's three right now, right? The Jets, the Saints, the Bears. Those are the three current ones that'll be,
Vegas, probably.
trending that way with Antonio Pierce. Will there be any in division? What about Zach Taylor? What about Kevin Stefanski?
I don't think either one of those guys are going anywhere.
Okay. Jacksonville, we firmly expect an opening.
Yeah.
It's a minor miracle Doug Peterson remains the head coach.
So how many is that? 5?
With the Raiders, the 3 openings, Jacksonville, 5. Yep. Are there any others?
I mean, is
There should be
Carolina
some
going to
others.
make a change after one season, right?
I know they're super trigger happy, but I think Canales will get another year. Bryce Young's improve. Dallas, McCarthy, that one. I mean, it feels like he'll be fired, but Jerry Jones, who the heck knows?
I don't think he's going to be fired. It feels like there's been more talk about a possible extension for
Well,
him.
they'll need to do a contract because McCarthy's
Right.
contract expires this year, so something will have to happen. The Giants, what happens to Dable? It just seems to be a mess. I know there's been confidence said by ownership, but is that the dreaded vote of confidence, or is that legitimate confidence for the team right now that's going nowhere?
And I mean, is anybody going to get canned in the West? I don't think so. I know there's,
Yeah, I don't see anyone getting
I
fired
know
there.
some people are trying to make rumblings about Shanahan, but I don't see it.
No. Tampa
Uh,
Bay, if they missed the playoffs, Todd Bowles, it's kind of been a stagnant Marvin Lewis type of situation there. It kind of feels like post Brady. I think of Dallas, the Giants, and Tampa Bay, and maybe some other wild card. One of those jobs I think will open up.
might there be less openings than usual? You know,
I'm not sure what the usual average number is, but
well,
we're
like
getting to like 6. Yeah, we're getting to like 6, 7 just off the ones we named. So let's just say there's 7 job openings open next year, which I think is a reasonable
I mean,
assumption.
Vrabel's going to be in the talk for one of them. I'm sure. Belichick's name's obviously going to come up. Who else? I mean, obviously the Detroit offensive coordinator is going to be in there.
Maybe even the
Uh,
DC. Aaron Glenn's doing a great
right,
job.
right.
Jesse
So,
Winter, the DC with the Chargers. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows? It's impossible. Like someone, I can ask sometimes, will Smith get a job? I don't know. It all takes is one team, and I can't predict what their hiring patterns will be. But his name will be in the mix.
all right, let's move on to anything insightful that Teryl Austin gave us.
Let's see what he said. And maybe it's just the grind of the job, quote unquote. But every week gets asked about moving TJ Watt and guys around. It's the same answer every week. It's
Right.
game plan dependent. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. There's really not a whole lot left, meat left on that bone there. Asked about Joey Porter Jr. and penalties, and I think Austin acknowledged the need to clean things up, obviously, but said, quote, we ask Joey to do a lot, put him on the backside, sometimes one-on-one with the best receivers, or maybe not the best receiver, but he's the guy that's not getting a lot of help. And so we just talked about that. He always uses the phrases bounce back. Thinks his guys will bounce back. And Porter, I think, has generally done that. It's not an inaccurate thought and assessment, but Austin was trying to say, like, we ask a lot out of this guy.
All right.
Anything else from Teryl Austin, Dave?
Not really. Reading through it once again, I wish we had the video or audio to go along with it to help parse it better.
Minka Fitzpatrick and the lack of splash. Again, same stuff there. There really is no new ground. Diontae Jackson, his 5 interceptions, and Pittsburgh says they're not surprised by the production because they felt like he was a good, ball hawk kind of a guy, and he's got a career high in interceptions this year.
All right.
How do you think Jackson has played overall this season?
Thought it was better earlier. I thought it was better earlier in the season. I think he's been. I think he gets propped up a little bit more in the second half of the season because he has been more opportunistic. Anytime you're running with the football in your hands, it's a good thing, right? I thought he was better earlier in the season, more impactful from a down to down basis than he has been in the second half of the season.
There's been some regression to the mean, but I think he's still been a serviceable number 2 corner, but his play certainly has waned. Would you want to see him re-signed?
Depends obviously on the price. And the thing is,
assume a reasonable $7-8 million price tag.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that happening. I don't want to do anything that's going to prevent me from going high in a draft to address a position and that player potentially hitting the field sooner rather than later. The more you pay a guy in his situation, the more apt you are to keep him on the field and a younger guy on the bench. But I mean, this team, even in the form that they are in right now, you still got a lot to learn about Corey Trice Jr., right? A, can he stay healthy? And B, can he be a guy that you play opposite Joey Porter Jr.? Beyond, you're still learning a lot about Beanie Bishop, what he can be for you moving forward past this season. If he can become more of an every situation slot defender. Beyond that, I mean, James Pierre is what James Pierre is, and he's a special teams player that, in case of emergency, you can break the glass and get out there. So let's assume that you don't re-sign Diontae Jackson after this year. Obviously, the meter is more on the backside with a guy like Cam Sutton too, right? Not a guy that you want out there every down type situation. Who else do you have?
Henderson, technically.
Yeah, that's more of that's
sure,
a project.
He's not starting, but I'm just offering the name.
Right. So yeah, I mean, even if let's assume Cam Sutton's not back. Okay. Let's assume that you don't get Diontae Jackson re-signed for whatever reason. Let's assume James Pierre is only brought back on a minimum deal to compete to get special teams time. That leaves you with really Corey Trice Jr. and Joey Porter Jr. And we still have a lot to, as we just mentioned at the top of the show, Corey Trice Jr. very well might be inactive for this game. How much more are we going to learn about Corey Trice Jr. from now until the end of the season if injury does not happen? So rolling this all back, you're going to have to probably address the position in a draft. I think that's an obvious, observation. And then, yeah, you probably do really consider at the right price getting Diontae Jackson back.
I think so. I think for all the reasons you mentioned, he's played well enough. I think he's fit into the culture immediately. I think his run defense, his willingness is better than what he was given credit for. It's not going to be a long-term deal, not going to be a ton of money, but yeah, if you lose him, you have a big hole there at corner. Trice has played 50 career defensive snaps, I think, and health has unfortunately just been a recurring factor. I'm root for him, and happy he's back on the field. He can be an asset. He's talented, but you trust this guy to start 17 games for you next season and play well. It's asking a lot, obviously. So I think you look to re-sign Diontae Jackson for sure.
They for whatever it's worth, Over the Cap has Dante's valuation right now at $8.5 million.
Okay, yeah, I was saying 7 or 8. And what was it? He played for $8 million this year, and I took the salary cut a little bit.
No, it was like wasn't it 6?
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's earned $6 million in cash this year.
Yeah, I think it was 10 initially on the Carolina deal. I took it down to 6, but we're in the same ballpark. 8 million, cap goes up. That's reasonable. 2-year deal worth, what would that be? 16 million.
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, in today's market, I mean, obviously you got a handful more games to kind of decide and all like that. But once again, how much are, barring injury to Joey Porter Jr. or Diontae Jackson, you're probably not going to learn as much as people want to learn about Corey Trice Jr. in these final handful of games.
And some breaking news here. Randy Moss is stepping away from NFL Countdown right now to address a personal health challenge from Adam Schefter. I know Moss announced that during, I think, Countdown this past weekend. He was dealing with something, and he's going to be stepping away from Countdown, looks like immediately, and hopefully coming back whenever he's recovered from his health issues. So just coming across the wire right now. I think even if you re-sign a Cam Sutton cannot be your starting outside corner in 2025. And so I don't think Sutton is going to move the needle too much either way.
All right.
Let's see. What else do we have here, Dave? You want to address not the elephant in the room, but one of the big stories of the week. Deontay Johnson, old friend Deontay Johnson, getting a 1-game suspension from the Baltimore Ravens, apparently, according to Baltimore in an officially released statement, refusing to enter the game this past Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. Baltimore on a bye this week, and so his 1-game suspension will take effect for the Week 15 contest against the Giants, meaning that if he's still on the roster by then, his first game back will be Week 16 in the rematch against Pittsburgh. So proof again that teams should not be taking chances on receivers the Steelers have traded away.
Yeah, interesting. Look, I mean, we knew something had been brewing with him after that last game against the Eagles. The weird kind of response that John Harbaugh gave there, and they're going to have to figure out how they're going to walk around it and all like that. And obviously, it came out that contract detrimental to the team, and him refusing to go into that Eagles game. The interesting thing is they're on a bye this week. So with them on a bye and then him being suspended for the next game, that buys them a little bit of time. It will be interesting come the following week when they have to make a decision on, to put him, back, undo the. Yeah. Long story short, he might not be long for there. I mean, this just might buy them some time to make a further decision there. He's obviously probably not happy with how he's being used there, and he obviously hasn't given them much of anything. So this might just be a put off to let things cool off a little bit through the bye, and then obviously the following week there. But I would suppose that if he is back on the 53, it'd be in time for the Steelers game, right?
Yeah, it's when he'd be eligible. So yeah, I mean, he'll be eligible and be on the roster again and getting paid for that game, assuming he's still with the team. So yeah, it's just there's an irony though in Johnson, who I can understand maybe to an extent being frustrated by the lack of playing time, but then refuse to go get playing time when he's being asked to put in the game after
Yeah.
Bateman got hurt, and then you get suspended, which now prevents you from playing even more. So if his issue was, hey, I'm not playing, and the team said, hey, come in and play, and he said no, well, I don't know what you want at that point, Diontae.
Here's the thing, too. Some people are trying to say, is he trying to pull a LeGarrette Blunt here and get himself out, to another situation?
Yeah, I know Florio said that, but it's like you're on the Ravens. You're on a
Uh,
playoff contender. Who are you trying to go to even more? Are you trying to climb the ladder seed by seed? I mean, it's not like you're still on Carolina. You're on the Baltimore Ravens, who will likely be in the playoffs and are viewed by many as a contender. Some still think they like their odds better than Pittsburgh. So if that's your angle, and then yeah, I understand the Ravens may not want to cut him and have him go somewhere. I don't know who's going to pick up Deontay Johnson at this point. And then I think Florio and others have said this too, not just him. But what about the comp pick? There's no comp pick value coming for Deontay Johnson. I promise you, his contract will be anything if he gets picked up,
right.
and you'd make a free agent move, it'll be canceled out. So I just cut the guy. It just seems like more of an anchor weighing down a team trying to make a playoff push and lock in for this mythical, oh, we'll get a seventh round comp pick value for him for 2026. Like just cut the guy.
Right. Man, that guy sure is hurting his value, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think he's a talented guy. I think he's shown to be a really good receiver. I don't know if he's a bad dude. I try to give grace for guys that I obviously don't personally know, but you just throwing your chances away, man.
Yeah, he's trying to get himself 1 foot out of the league as quick as possible at this point now, and yeah, he's really hurt his value even moving. Not only moving forward in this season, but next season as well too. And
Hmm.
you wonder how much of you look back at the Steelers' decision to move on for him, and how much strife maybe he was causing behind the scenes. And yeah, I mean, and then the Steelers got look, the biggest issue I had with all that is who they going to replace. Uh, are they going to just let technically, other than Mike Williams, and Mike Williams hasn't done much since he's been added. My biggest contention was, okay, not so much that you went out and traded for a cornerback in that situation, but what are you going to do with the wide receiver room?
Yeah, the concern was multifold. One of them was, okay, you've plugged one hole at corner, but then you open another at receiver, and how do you fill it, and how do the pieces all come together? And I think most would argue that Pittsburgh has not adequately filled Deontay Johnson's role.
Now, look, they obviously got the better end of the deal, right?
Yes.
Dump salary on top of it, and got a player that's contributing on defense, as you mentioned, with the 5 picks and all like that. So when you look at it 1 for 1, I mean, you got a supposed cancer out of the room and all like that. I mean, you can't fault it on the 1 for 1 basis there. Our whole contention about the move was, man, what are you going to do with the wide receiver room? We were already kind of talking about it as it was, and Now it looked a little bit lighter, and to their credit, they have hung on, and we saw last week they spread the football around to 10 different eligibles, and they're making do with the wide receiver room, and they've yet to get any contribution really per se. Well, I don't want to say any, because you can't downplay the one catch that Mike Williams has had, right? It's just we kind of thought he'd be a little bit more involved. We'll obviously see. We talked about this the other day, and Mike Tomlin saying that it's coming, with Mike Williams. So we'll see to what degree that actually is. But back to the original topic, Deontay Johnson certainly isn't helping himself, and it'll be interesting to see if he's still on this roster when Baltimore plays the Steelers a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, would not be surprised if he was gone by then. And even if he's with the team, who knows what kind of role that he'll have. All right, Dave, let's get into, again, no beat writer this week, since we just talked with Scott Petrak 2 weeks ago. There really isn't a lot new to discuss on the Browns end. There aren't any radical changes to their roster and their situation. They are 3-9 coming off a short week, as you said, that road loss and that shootout game against Denver on Monday night. I'm not even sure really how to ask the questions, because I don't want to be a broken record here, Dave, but I'll just ask it as I normally do. When you watch this Browns offense, maybe when you watch this Browns offense against Pittsburgh in week 12, what stood out to you?
First and foremost, I keep going back, rewatched the game and went back into the stat book. I mean, the Steelers did a good job on third down against this team. They were one for 10 in this game. They didn't give up a lot of explosive plays overall in this game. The kind of thing that I keep rolling back to was the thing that we talked about coming out of that game as well too. I mean, they were very good on fourth downs, and those fourth downs ended up being a key component of that game. They were 4 for 4 on fourth down. They were 3 of 4 inside the red zone. You and I have had that conversation the last couple of weeks about the Steelers defense inside the red zone. Heck, the Steelers had 3 takeaways in that game as well too. So they did a lot, and they kept the running game pretty much in check against the Browns as well too. So I mean, it was a very you have to dig to kind of situationally here to figure out how the Steelers ended up actually losing that game to them. Now, when you roll specifically, and I think you guys did a great job of breaking this down as well too. The Browns had a concerted effort to throw on early downs and run on second down. That probably caught the Steelers a little bit by surprise overall. These two teams match still in total first downs, 17 each overall. So it wasn't like, and then once again, you go back to the third down. Well, I mean, 4 of those 17 first downs that the Browns had came on fourth down, right? Right. So that's another key component there, and only one other. So how many of their first downs came on first downs?
A decent amount. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I think it was about 20% in that week 12 game. Cleveland averaged, I should say, 7.7 yards per play on first down. Okay. That was 5th best of the week. Pittsburgh only averaged 3.4 yards on first down. That was next to last in that week. And so, yeah, Cleveland, I have the number here. In the first 3 quarters, I'm removing the fourth quarter to take away noise from game circumstance. Cleveland on first down threw the ball 9 times and ran it 6 times. On second down, they were the opposite. They had 12 runs to 7 pass attempts on second down. So it was a throw early approach. And like you said, I think Pittsburgh was caught off guard by that.
Right. So that's something that you would expect not to happen. You have to be more cognizant of, and look, here's the thing too, since these two teams played, obviously they had the longer week to prepare for the Broncos, right? But now they're coming off a short week, and one of their practices was their Wednesday practice was a glorified walkthrough per se. How much of what they do is probably going to change over from what they've done over the last couple of weeks? Probably not too terribly much. I mean, obviously, you can pull some stuff out that you've run earlier, maybe some shot plays and stuff like that. But I think kind of what you see is what you get from the last couple of games when it comes to the Browns tape. There, I keep rolling back to once again, and this was evident in the game against the Broncos as well too. I don't think I realized how good a Jameis Winston is in extended play situations as from what we've learned over the last couple of games against him. He made some extended plays against the Broncos. Now, his accuracy, I think, is still something that's in question, and his decision making at times. Heck, he had three interceptions against the Broncos. Two of those were pick six. Variety on top of it. He is still a guy that accuracy is going to be some concerns on, and he's still a guy that's going to probably give you a chance or two during a game to take the football away. And if he presents those opportunities, you have to take advantage of them. I think one thing that you've got to make sure to do is try your best to keep the pocket kind of, and it's a different kind of extended. Joe Burrow is still the better extended play quarterback because of his what he does when not only outside of the pocket but stepping up into the pocket. Jameis Winston is less of a extended play stepping up into the pocket as much as he is an extended play threat outside of the pocket. So I think you want to try to collapse this pocket around him. Don't give him as many opportunities to make extended plays outside of the pocket. That's first and foremost, I think, with him. I think you have kind of the same attack that you do with the running game overall. Chubb's not back yet, right?
Yeah, I don't see the same Mr. Chubb as before, and I'm not
right.
trying to be too critical of him. He's coming off a severe knee injury. The mere fact he's playing a year and a half later is a miracle and a testament to his work and rehab. He's got two major knee injuries, the one in college and this one in his comeback. But I don't see the same burst or explosiveness, but they gave him 20 carries in that first game. So, I mean, they're willing to ride this guy, and he's got a lot of, I'm sure, a little chip on his shoulder, especially his first game back in Pittsburgh where he got hurt last year inside Acrisure Stadium.
And Ford seems to have. I won't be surprised if we see a little bit more balance from them out of the running backs this week, because Ford is the more kind of explosive player right now of the two, and really the one I fear more. And he only had 4 for 19 in that game against the Steelers the first time there. So I wonder if we might see a little bit more Ford in this one. In Njoku, obviously, early down red zone situation, somebody that you got to look forward to. Heck, they went back to back kind of corner routes to him in this game against Denver. Jameis missed him the first time, and they went back to him in the second time and hit him. He's regardless of your quarterback, regardless of the situation, Njoku's someone that you got to worry about. Jerry Jeudy has obviously come alive since Jameis Winston is taken back over at quarterback now. He's not as much of a physical type player as he is the speed component there, and also the Steelers don't have Levi Wallace having to try to guard him as well too. So I think you got to be cognizant of Njoku in more early down situations. Choice routes and those kind of things. Obviously, he's a huge threat in the red zone there. And then Jerry Jeudy, you got to be concerned about, kind of shot play type situation. Now, they'd like to run these kind of digs and stuff to Jeudy and Moore. And is Atkins going to play in this one? Is he one of those ones that banged up? Or not Atkins, Tillman.
Yeah, he's in concussion protocol.
Right.
I think he did not practice yesterday.
But, I mean, you're rolling back once again. The Steelers did a good job in explosive play, limited explosive plays that first time around. They did a good job, I thought, overall in run situations. But once again, when we went back and we looked at those Chubb runs, it was, you limited him to 3-point yards, per carry, but he had a lot of successful runs because of them more, I guess, their success on first down, right? So I think this boils down to you got to be better in first down against the Browns, and if you do that in this game, the rest should fall into place, I feel.
Well, I would say Chubb had his success in those short yardage moments. He had a fourth down conversion as a fullback. He had 2 goal line touchdown runs. I don't remember the exact downs those came on. I think one was a second down. I think another might have been a first down, but it was just a lot of short yardage, B gap type stuff he was doing. I just want to say
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You can't judge him on the 3 yards per carry because a lot of his runs were successful runs type situations.
Okay, I got you. I'm on the same page now. You're right. Yeah, he was using those more situational type moments, but he did still get 20 carries overall. Ford, as you said, only got 4, and 3 of those came on 1st and 10. So second down situations were really Chubb's MO. I will say, I know that Cleveland will have a challenge on a short week being the road team, but it's not like they don't know what to prepare for. They just prepared for this team 2 weeks ago, and it's an AFC North opponent that they're really familiar with. And so I don't know. I think they would have been hurt more if they were playing just to make up a team, the Giants this weekend, where it's a short week and it's a team you don't know as much about. You just played against Pittsburgh. And so the preparation feels it's a factor, obviously, and less practice time, as you mentioned, the one walkthrough, but it's just kind of really about getting healthy and getting right for this game and getting your guys set physically, because game plan mentally, like you just saw this team. And so I think they won't be as impacted by the short week as other teams would normally be.
Did you see more in this game against Denver versus the Steelers of maybe Ethan Posick, the center, being on the move more?
I didn't watch a ton of the Broncos game. I just because it's a weird week, and so we just focused on the Steelers game to see what the Browns kind of what their strategy was. But yeah, they can pull those guys. They like pulling the guards, but Posick's been a good center for them. He was a guy that came in when they had a bunch of injuries, when Nick Harris went down, and all that kind of stuff happened a couple of years back, and he's done well for them. So they're going to be pretty varied, some outside zones, some pullers. I thought against Pittsburgh, they ran a ton of gap scheme with the guards pulling, left guard, right guard, backside guard pulling. That was a pretty frequent call they made.
All right. Should one of the keys to this game be better on first down defensively if you're the Steelers?
I think on both sides. I don't know exactly what Pittsburgh was on first down. Well, actually, no, I do, because they were bad on first down in both respects. The Browns were averaging almost 8 yards per play on first down in that Week 12 game, and Pittsburgh's offense was averaging 3.5. And so, yeah, I think better on first down overall is the key.
All right, and keeping Winston, out of these extended play situations, keep him bottled up, take advantage of his mistakes there. I think you can change the whole tone of this thing if you're better on first down, and then obviously better in the red zone. Something we've talked about that this team, the Steelers defense, hasn't been great the last several weeks when it comes to red zone. If you're better on first down this game, and if you're better inside the red zone, and obviously limit the chances. I mean, obviously the fourth down stat sticks out, but I'm not convinced that we're going to see 4 fourth down opportunities for the Browns this time around. We could, but
I would just say I understand your point about wanting to contain Winston, but I don't want to mute this pass rush, because to me, the number one issue in that Browns game was Pittsburgh's pass rush was just not consistent enough, especially in some of those big time moments. TJ Watt had a really poor game. I want to see the rematch against Jack Conklin. I bet you Watt's really itching to get back in that fight and have a good game after, struggling against Cleveland, and Garrett has 3 sacks, and Garrett's a talk of the town. He's talking about how he's number one. There's a lot of motivation for TJ Watt in this game. So I want to have him and see him put on a typical great TJ Watt performance, but the rush has to be better. Interior, that D line did not get a good rush in that, and did not beat blocks in that first matchup. And so I think Pittsburgh's pass rush has to really win this game, where they did not 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, look, we need to be talking about TJ Watt after this game the way we were talking about Myles Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other thing. I think you still have Jermaine Fady over there at left tackle, right? And regardless of we'll see what the snap rotation is between guys like Herbig and Highsmith, and Highsmith's first game back. But regardless, you still got a left tackle over there in Jermaine that can be taken advantage of, and you'd like to see that continue. Obviously, Conklin did a great job against Watt the last time. You hope Watt quick turnaround like this, will bounce back and have a much better performance than he did the last time. But I mean, you could very easily have the Steelers have a 9-sack game in this one.
I hope so. They typically have those crooked numbers against Cleveland historically, and they didn't do it in the first matchup. And so I want to see it happen. This one, my last note here in terms of the past game, we saw a lot of quick game from Cleveland overall in this one on early downs. Took a couple vertical shots, but they want to get the ball out quick on some mirrored concepts to slow down that rush, which was one component of why Pittsburgh's pass rush was not as effective. On third down, a lot of triangle reads, a lot of easy reads for Winston, mesh sit, spot routes, those type of triangle reads. And so can Pittsburgh get their hands on one of these footballs and pick off a pass? Winston is such a streaky guy. There's no his performance against Denver was such a perfect embodiment for his entire career. 497 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2 were pick six. One was almost taken back it was taken back half the length of the field in the end zone. So that is such a peak Winston performance. Can you handle can you not get burned too bad whenever he's hot? And can you capitalize whenever he's cold?
Okay.
All right, going over to the Browns defense, Myles Garrett, the 3 sacks in this game. That'll be the big task. Can you slow this guy down? They did do a nice job in the second half against him, but that'll be the first mission, the most important mission. If they can't do that, could be another long day, is handling Myles Garrett. But I do think, Pittsburgh, their run scheme, their run game plan has to be smarter. It was, to me, one of the worst elements of that Browns loss in week 12, just a really pared down, static, vanilla, predictable, even though I kind of dislike that term overall, but it was apt in this game. Run scheme, it has to be more varied, has to be more effective in this game.
And they still ran for 120 yards in that game?
Yeah, I think so. What were the numbers in that game? That's a good question. The numbers look good, but it didn't feel
right.
Like a 120-yard game.
Right. And they had tackles for lost yards. They had 8 of those. Some of those I think were sacks involved in that as well too. But less negativity in the run game. They've got to be the better team on first down this time around, especially when it comes to their running game. Once again, they did a lot of good things in this game offensively. They were 7 of 16 on third downs in this game. Obviously, just 1 of 3 on fourth down. So if you're going to go for fourth downs, you got to convert at a higher clip. And they were only down in the red zone twice, and they converted just once in there. So you remember the talk coming out of that Browns game. Mike Thomas said we got to concentrate more on red zone on both sides of the football, yada yada. So you just got to see them finish drives better this time around than they did in the first meeting against the team. Once again, I thought they did a lot of good things in this game overall. Now, look, you want George Pickens to stay within himself this game. They're going to obviously try to be needling him. I think when you look at specifics analytics-wise, the last few games for Cleveland, they've been in zone coverages 68% of the time, 66% of the time. Man coverage just 21% of the time. They've been fairly split when it comes to middle field close, middle field open. I think 49% with middle of the field close versus like 39% middle of the field open. They haven't blitzed. I mean, they blitzed 21% the last couple of games, but they really have, when you got a guy like Myles Garrett, they've used 4-man rush, I think 76% of the time. So look, you got to run better. Your running game's got to be sharper than it was the last time around. I wouldn't mind running at Myles Garrett, a little bit more in this one. One thing that I did kind of notice in this Broncos game too, it might not be too bad of an idea to get Justin Fields in this game a little bit earlier and with some zone read, because Myles occasionally won't surf it, on the outside. He'll just come crashing down. And I did notice he was kind of keying on crashing down against Bo Nix and that running game. So maybe you can, even with Russ, maybe have him keep one early if he reads it and Myles comes crashing down, to kind of keep him widened out a little bit overall. But Miles Garrett's the biggest concern in this game. They got to do a better job of help in chipping and keeping him at bay. He cannot have a 3-sack, strip, 1 strip, 2 strip type of game. If you do, you're going to be in the same situation that you were last time.
Yeah, it's my least favorite Dr. Seuss novel, Miles Garrett. 1 strip, 2 strip, 3 strip. I don't know about read option with Garrett unblocked. I think Garrett unblocked overall, I'll pass on, especially if it's Rush trying to figure it out there. But you got to, as Pittsburgh had too much of a gap scheme in this game. They weren't as effective as the game went on. Not enough inside zone duo. You can run on the middle of this Browns defense. Right. They don't have JOK in this game. Their interior D line is not incredibly strong. There's some decent talent, Tomlinson, but you can run on these guys.
Run it, Devin Bush.
Yeah, you got to run on these guys and kind of take it to them with your big physical interior O-line and Frazier, McCormick, and Sayamalu. Trust in those guys. I thought Pittsburgh was a little too more wider runs, gap runs, pulling the guard in the center and creating some of those gaps and not blocking. Listen, Diabate, their linebacker, ran free the entire game on some of those gap schemes, and backside couldn't deal with him. So just duo inside zone up the middle is kind of my approach in this game.
Do you remember the explosive plays in that game against the Browns?
The ones that Pittsburgh had?
Yeah.
I mean, there were the 2 to Calvin, right? The touchdown, the 46-yarder that was almost a touchdown. There was some pressure there. The Fields. Yeah, Pittsburgh, you're right, ran for $120, but it was 34 carries, and 30 of those came from Fields, which I'm not diminishing. You can use Fields in this game, but I'm all for it. But, the running backs themselves were averaging pretty poor. There were a couple of decent runs, but there was too much run negativity in that game. So there was the Fields run, the plays to Calvin. Is there a moon ball to Pickens in this game?
Yeah, Pickens had one for 31, right?
Okay.
Wasn't that down the left side? Or no, the right side, I mean.
That was that third down jump ball to him, or was that a different play?
That was the one that was a little bit, I think, underthrown, wasn't it? That he adjusted to.
I think that's the one we're thinking of. Yeah. Any other big plays I'm missing in this one?
You had the Justin Fields right end for 30 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the Browns did a nice job defending the boot game, and obviously, I think Cleveland presents issues because when you have a Miles Garrett, it's harder for Pittsburgh to confidently use play action. You don't want to do it with Garrett's out there with your boot game. Pittsburgh only booted twice in this game, 1 away from Garrett, 1 when he was not on the field, and so I think Cleveland structurally forces Pittsburgh to play a game they're not as comfortable with, but Pittsburgh will have to deal with that. Can't cry about it and have to overcome. And I think being on a longer week, obviously no short week, and being the road team as you were last time, I think circumstances have Pittsburgh in a better spot this time around.
I agree as well too. What's the weather supposed to be like?
Let's see. It's gonna be cold. It's been cold all week here. Let's see what the weather forecast is for Sunday. 45 and sunny, a little bit of wind, no rain. So it's gonna be a crisp, cool, but not frigid game for Sunday.
All right. So we shouldn't have the snow situation that we saw this last time, right?
Yeah, should be able to actually see the all 22 this time around. Any other final thoughts here, Dave?
No. I mean, I still think the Steelers match up very well in this one, and I think obviously the 4th down situations, the red zone situations, played a big part in that last loss they had to them.
Yeah. I think special teams have to be more effective in this one for sure. All right, Dave, any other final thoughts here? Anything else we should get to before we make our picks for week number 14?
No, I think we can get to our picks here.
All right, Dave, let's do it. We pushed last night, right?
Right. 3 points.
Line.
We were on the opposite sides of the fence, and it ended up being a 3-point game as it was. For a moment there, I thought the Packers were going to pull it out, but obviously didn't. Okay, let's move on to the Carolina Panthers, a much anticipated trip to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. The Eagles are 13-point home favorites against the Panthers.
Yeah, it's a big line. Bryce Young has been better, but the supporting cast, I just don't think it's there. I will go with the Eagles, Dave.
I will take the Eagles, lay to 13. Raiders on the road against the Buccaneers. Buccaneers laying 6.5.
I'll go Tampa Bay.
I'll go Tampa Bay as well, too. The Dolphins will host the Jets. The Dolphins are 5.5-point home favorites against the Jets.
I will take Yeah, give me the Dolphins.
I'll take the Jets to cover the number. Probably going to be a field goal game. So give me the Jets plus 5.5. How about the Falcons on the road against the Vikings? Cousins facing his old team, right? 5.5 points. Vikings favored by 5.5 at home against the Falcons.
And needing a bounce back, Cousins was miserable last time out, but I will take Brian Flores, those blitz schemes, and Minnesota.
I'll take the Falcons to win this outright. Give me the 5.5 points on this. How about the Saints on the road against the Giants? Saints 4.5 point road favorites against the G-Men.
I will take the Giants to cover.
I'll take the Saints to cover on the road at 4.5 points. How about the Jaguars on the road against the Titans? The Titans favored by 3. Lawrence is on IR now. The Jaguars are a mess. Titans laying 3 at home.
Yeah, Matt Jones will be getting the start for them. What's the line? 3 point?
3
for Tennessee at home. Give me Jacksonville.
I'll take the Titans lay to 3. How about the Seahawks on the road against the Cardinals? Should be an entertaining game. The Cardinals are actually favored 2.5 at home against the Seahawks.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good NFC West matchup. A lot on the line in this one. I will take. Give me Seattle.
I'll take Seattle plus the 2.5 points as well, too. How about Buffalo on the road against the Rams? Buffalo 3.5 point road favorites out west.
Yeah, it's road game. Pretty far trip there for Buffalo, but I got to go with the Bills, Dave.
Man, the Rams, if they're ever in a needed moment, this would be it. You know what? Give me the Rams plus the 3.5 in this one. How about the Bears on the road against the 49ers? The 49ers need to start winning some ball games. They are favored by 3.5. Obviously don't have Christian McCaffrey now, but 3.5 home favorites against the Bears.
Brock Purdy, will he start? I think he is starting in this game. You're going to get the post-firing bump here for Chicago. Got a couple of running backs down for the Niners. Can you run the line by me one more time?
3.5.
Yeah, I got to go with the 49ers, Dave.
I'll go with the 49ers later, 3.5 as well, too. Chargers on the road against the Chiefs. This should be a good one. And this is Sunday night action. Chiefs laying 4 at home against the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers. The great defense that they have. What number 1 defense, I think, still subduing and making this a really tight divisional game.
I'm going to go with the Chargers as well, too. I won't be surprised if they win this outright. I'll take the 4 points. Bengals on the road against the Cowboys Monday night. Bengals laying 5.5 on the road against Dallas.
And root for a Chargers win, too, to get Kansas City their second loss and open up potential 1-seed possibilities for Pittsburgh. I will take you said Bengals. Yeah, I'll take Bengals.
I'll take the Bengals lay to 5.5 on the road as well, too. That circles us back to the Steelers home game against the Browns on Sunday. The Steelers are 6.5 point home favorites this time around. What say you?
I say I'm a lot less nervous for this game than I was before. I recognize the Browns have talent and they're not as bad as they were under Watson, and that defense is underachieved, but there are some players there. But what made me concerned before doesn't apply now. The short week, the road team coming off the emotional game against Baltimore, trying to get back up in a hurry, emotionally for the Browns game. Don't want to overlook this one. And Cleveland is going for their first sweep of Pittsburgh since 1988. If you can believe it, last time they beat Pittsburgh twice in the regular season.
When were you born?
93. So literally have never lived to see that happen. And I hope we can go at least one more year without. All that said, Pittsburgh will have a better game plan, be more prepared, home team, all that stuff. I got Pittsburgh winning this one 26-16 over the Browns.
I was ripe 20 years old last time the Browns.
Yeah. Crazy. 1988.
Yeah. And the Steelers in their last, 20 regular season home games? Is it?
They've won all 20.
And the only loss to the Browns in Pittsburgh was a playoff game, right?
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that? Okay. Yeah, it ain't going to happen this year. I'm fairly confident in this one. So much so that, let's see, 63-3. Nah, I can't go. I can't go that long. I would be surprised if it gets kind of very lopsided in this one, but I'm not willing to make that my prediction. I think the Steelers handle this though, handle their business. Look, they got a bad taste in the mouth from that last game. A lot of the same circumstances don't exist from that last time. It'll be very, 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 very disappointing if the Steelers drop this game. I have this 23-13, 10-point win for the Steelers. So obviously covering the 6.5 number. I would not be surprised if this gets out of the hand if Jameis Winston's prayers are not answered about Lord deliver me from the pick sixes. It would be nice to see Minka praying on the other side for a pick six on this one, but this matches up really, really well, I think, for the Steelers from a health standpoint. From every aspect of it, it matches up well. 23-13 Steelers.
That's about 10-point wins, mine a little more in the scoring, but in that same ballpark overall. As we always ask, Dave, if the Steelers somehow lose this game, what would cause their downfall?
It's going to be another big game by Myles Garrett. Some turnovers mixed in, a few more on the Steelers side, and not getting them this time out of Jameis Winston. The Browns being better on third down this time. The Steelers still struggling in the red zone, both sides of the football. I mean, I doubt we'll see another Browns victory with a 1-10 third down and a 4-for-4 fourth down type situation, and the Steelers winning the turnover battle 3-1. I think it'd just be a more of a traditional loss. You lose the turnover battle. Myles Garrett puts you on the ground a couple times. They obviously take the football away. The Steelers just not being able to get touchdowns instead of field goals.
Yeah, I think that said well. I think Judy would have another big game if Cleveland does win this one. Winston has just more good than bad. Pittsburgh drops an interception opportunity, and special teams is not special the way that they were for the first majority of the season. So hopefully it doesn't happen, but I think that's the path.
All right, shall we get to a couple of emails here?
Yep, and close out today's show.
Bryce wants us back in here. You mentioned Steelers' reluctance to run play action against Cleveland, turn their backs to Myles Garrett. So it would seem to me that once again, pistol would be a good answer to the problem. Get to the play action quicker and still be able to run all the stuff they want to run. Why do you think they don't go to the pistol package more often?
It's a question I've wondered about the NFL in general for a long time. I think Pistol is able to combine so many great things in terms of your downhill run action, and then actual play action, getting the quarterback away from center, being able to hide which way the run is going. If you're in shotgun, the running back is sidecar to your right, odds are that run's going to go to the left. And so I think Pistol's great. I think go back to the Nevada days of Chris Alt and what they did. I've tried to research a little bit what like the downsides to pistol are. I don't have a lot of great answers to that. So it's just one of those things where it kind of feels like the NFL just doesn't do it that much. And so they're stuck in their ways, and that's all I can really offer you. It's a good question.
How many times have they gone pistol this year?
I mean, they have. I can try to pull up Tom's charting if you want to give me a second. I mean, they have done it. They had the first snap against Cleveland last week was a diamond formation. Pistol back behind, two sidecar guys. So, I mean, they have done it a handful of times, but it's not really a base system like you see it in some of the college game. I would probably guess. Well, I've not opened the charting yet. How many times do you think they've run pistol? If we had to guess a number, I'll say 25.
I was going to say 25, so I'll take the under.
All right, let's see. Give me a second.
I'll start reading this next question here from our buddy George O'Dodery from Northeastern University. George has obviously been a long time listener of the show as well, so it's exciting when he gets in here. He says, I'm old enough to remember the days of Mike Webster at center and have gotten used to the proposition that one of the best centers in the league is always playing in Pittsburgh. Along these lines, I have previously written in expressing my nervous anxiety over Zach Frazier's ability to handle the AFC North nose tackles. I know he missed some games, but I have been pleasantly surprised, so I was wondering if it's too early for me to relax and declare the Pittsburgh center tradition secure. My only reservation is that when I watch the games, I keep seeing 66 Alan Faneca mauling defenders right next to him, and I start to question my sanity. So my question, am I crazy to think that Zach Frazier is the next great Steelers center? Is it possible that Mason McCormick is even better lineman? Do you have the answer to that question real quick, the pistol?
I do. This is from our charting from our great Tom Mead. This excludes the penalties and the no plays, I should say. So just a heads up on that. Justin Fields has 22 plays in pistol, and Russell Wilson has 3 for 25 on the dot. I swear we did not look it up beforehand. This is not a ruse to impress, but he actually nailed it, Dave.
I would have thought it'd been slightly over, but not much. I would have thought maybe around 28, 29.
Yeah, I thought when Fields did 22, I thought Russell would have had a couple more, but apparently Russ.
How many with penalties?
I'm not even sure if there are any, but I can check. I don't believe there actually are any in there, so I think it is just straight up 25. Yeah.
Okay. So, good guess.
You were guessing. I just guessed first. You were going to take 25 too, so we were on the same page.
All right. As far as George writing in, look, I will say this: Zach Frazier's been impressive in the games that he's played in, especially against AFC North, competition. Did kind of let's see, when did he come back? Man, how many games did he miss? 3?
When did Frazier come back? He got hurt in the Raiders game, came back after the bye in the Washington game, so missed the 2.5, the back half of the Raiders game, the Jets and the Giants contests.
Look, Zach Frazier has been very impressive. A guy that moves well out space, a guy that you can see the wrestling background with him, a guy that seems to get more and more comfortable as far as recognition and line calls throughout this thing. I mean, the question is, does he have the potential to be the next great Steelers center? I think the answer to that's, from what we've seen so far, absolutely yes. I mean, if he stays healthy, I think he's only going to get better. You could probably have some good arguments that he probably deserves at least some second team All Pro votes.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think he'll get some recognition this year. Do you think he can actually be on that level? Because when we say Steelers, like next great center, that has a different connotation. We're talking Webster and Dawson and Pouncey and those guys.
I mean, you don't want to. You don't want
to that level.
I mean, can he? Can he be? Here's the thing: can he be a 10-year center in Pittsburgh? Yes. And you're not going to hang around this league if you're not a great center. To be able to do that. So short answer is, do I think he could we be talking about him and potentially being compared to these greats later on? I mean, it's still a rookie season, yada yada, like it have. He's on a great path. How's that?
But there's a difference between being a 10-year center even in Pittsburgh and being Mike Webster. Like, you can be a Ben Jones and have a good long career, but not be at that Hall of Fame level. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just asking if that's how you're
I want to, it's easy to be caught prisoner in a moment here in an amount of games for a rookie season, and he didn't even play all of them. He has been very, very good so far. Look, I had this guy going to the Steelers in the first round.
Right. Yeah.
I thought this guy was I thought coming out of college, this was the best, truest center. Now, Grant Barton's been absolutely fantastic for Tampa Bay and all like that. Yeah, I think we could be talking about him as one of these Webster Dawson types. But I mean, that you're talking Hall of Fame guys there, though.
Right. That's the highest of high bars. I do think his ceiling is higher than what I thought it was whenever I evaluated him coming out. My comparison was more Ben Jones, which is a solid starter for a long time, but not that household name, multi-time Pro Bowler. I think he can make multiple Pro Bowls. I think because also, to be fair, once you make one as a lineman and you stay pretty consistent, you're going to make a bunch because your name just kind of known.
And same with All Pro.
Yeah, same with that. So I think he can be closer to Pouncey than what I thought in that Jeff Harding's kind of vein, where it's really, really good for a long time. I think he can become a 5-6 time type of Pro Bowler, right? Is he Webster Dawson? That just feels like too high of a bar to even entertain at this moment so early in his career, but he's obviously been super impressive.
All right, the second part is Mason McCormick, an even better lineman. Mason McCormick's been very impressive. I think the better that Mason McCormick becomes as a pass protector, and I think there's some room there. You talked about Russell Wilson kind of bailing on some pockets. Once he learns to trust Mason McCormick being able to drop anchor, and there was, I think, a time or two in this game where it looked like Mason was maybe going to get pushed back and he dropped anchor on it. He probably maybe he doesn't bail in some of those situations there, but I think I've seen progression of Mason McCormick even as a pass protector throughout the season. You know me and these guards, man. This guy looks, and I was concerned when they were flipping him over to the right side. Not that I didn't think that he could handle it, just that he hadn't done it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this guy could play. At this point, I think this guy could play either left guard or right guard and be absolutely fantastic. So I really think I'd like to see him on the move a little bit more, pulling, especially not, some of those skip pulls. But this guy is the real deal.
Yeah, I've been super impressed about Ross McCorkle. Has a great filmer on McCormick from this Bengals game with a lot of good highlights and technique work. Isn't it crazy that some guys can move and switch spots with ease and some guys struggle?
Right.
It's just one of those unpredictable things where some guys can do it and some guys can't. And McCormick seems to be one of those guys that can. And for him to just handle, like nothing seems to bother Mason McCormick.
Right.
A nuclear bomb could go up outside of Acrisure before kickoff. Be like, all right, we're good. We're playing. Let's go win. Let's go run this duo block, this ace block. It's just, yeah, he's a small school kid, playing left guard, moving to right guard, the transition to Pat Meyer system, which can trip up veteran and rookie linemen alike. Nothing seems to bother him. His energy level is great. His communication's increased. I think his leadership is maybe grown in some respect in terms of taking charge, in terms of communication on that side, playing in a young group of people, young pod, a Frazier, a rookie, who's communicating fantastically as well. Broderick Jones, a second-year tackle, a lot of youth on that side. Someone has to kind of step up, and they're all working together. But McCormick, I think, certainly is really kind of asserted himself. And somebody made a really good point that I think McCormick did a lot of the line calls at South Dakota State because he just was so experienced. And some NFL scouts, including Pittsburgh, viewed him as a potential center guy at the NFL level. I think his communication and leadership was one reason, maybe for some teams projecting him a bigger guy to potentially play center. So yeah, I cannot gush enough about this guy. There's things to work on in pass pro on his edges and pad level and run blocking. It's not perfect, but really, really excited about this guy.
Boy, he really is a good communicator with Broderick on that side. It jumps out a lot on the all 22.
Yeah, he doesn't make the same mistake twice. I thought Ross had a good clip of him missing a stunt early in that Bengals game. They run it again later on. He picks it up. And so, yeah, you make mistakes. You're a rookie, going to happen. But whether it's refitting his hands, whether it's leverage, I mean, he just does not make the same mistake twice, which is great.
Okay, I think we got through most everything here. Anything else coming in?
I will double check, but I think we're good. Get the injury report today. Figure out Mon Adams tomorrow. Let's see. Anything else? No, I think we're done. You're going to go see some Christmas lights tonight, Dave?
Yeah, I think so. Go out to the Las Vegas Speedway. They do a great job out there, and you drive underneath the bleach. It's a very entertaining getaway, and it's quite a drive as well. So it lets you get some time out of the house there. So, all right. In the meantime, we will be back on obviously on Monday to recap the game. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. And let's see. I believe we got everything. So until we get to Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.